Abby. So, let's see, where were we? Last time, Kazoo was at the pizza shop, and she just found out that someone else had a new pizza shop. I wonder what she thought about that. And Bluey was going to make a spinach pizza, remember? Just for Katie. And Becky, she was the one who told her about the pizza shop. Did you say free food? A woman at the next booth asked Becky. Free pizza and soda. I just had some. The woman stood up. She grabbed her little girl by the hand. Come on, Alexandra. Let's try that new restaurant. Then a terrible thing happened. Something that never had happened before. Louie dropped the pizza dough. Sorry, folks, Louie said as he scooped up the dirty dough from the floor, changed his rubber cooking gloves, and picked up a new ball. Let's try that again. Louie tossed a new ball of pizza dough in the air. He spun around in a circle as it flew through the air and sang an Italian song. But he wasn't smiling the way he usually did when he was making pizza. Louie was obviously upset, and Katie was pretty sure it didn't have anything to do with the fallen pizza dough. Boy, does Becky have a crush on you, Suzanne teased as she and Jeremy and Katie climbed into the back seat of Mrs. Carew's car later that afternoon. She does not, Jeremy protested. Does too, Suzanne answered back. She batted her eyes and imitated Becky's accent. Ooh, Jeremy, you have the best taste. Jeremy blushed. He pushed his glasses up on his nose. I wish Becky had never moved here, he exclaimed. Katie gulped. Jeremy, don't make wishes like that, she warned. Katie knew all about making wishes. Sometimes they came true, and that could lead to big problems. It had all started one really bad day at school. Katie had lost the football game for her team, ruined her favorite jeans, and burped in front of the whole class. That night, Katie had wished that she could be anyone but herself. There must have been a shooting star flying overhead or something when she made that wish, because the very next day the magic wind came. The magic wind was a wild storm that seemed to blow only around Katie. It was really powerful, so powerful, in fact, that the magic wind was able to turn Katie into somebody else. The first time the magic wind came, it changed Katie into Speedy, the class hamster. Another time it turned her into her own dog, Pepper. But the magic wind didn't turn Katie into animals only. Sometimes it turned her into grown-ups, like Lucille, the school lunch lady, and Mrs. Kane, the principal of her school, Cherrydale Elementary School. The magic wind had also turned Katie into other kids, like Becky or Jeremy. Being somebody else could be really tough. When she was Jeremy, Katie didn't even know whether to use the girls' or the boys' room. Don't worry, Jeremy, Suzanne said, interrupting Katie's thoughts. Becky will get over you as soon as she gets some brains. Okay, why don't you three talk about something else, Mrs. Carew suggested. And don't forget to buckle up, she added as she prepared to pull out of the parking lot. Chapter 4. The next afternoon, Katie arrived at the mall with her mother at exactly noon. Hurry up, Mom. It's lunchtime. I want to make sure I get a good seat at Louie's. Katie's mom laughed. You certainly like pizza. Mom, it's not just the pizza. It's fun at Louie's. Everyone from school is there except Mrs. Dirkman, of course, and that makes it even more fun. Mrs. Dirkman was Katie's very strict third-grade teacher. She was also Katie's next-door neighbor. Ever since a few months ago, when Mrs. Dirkman had moved into the neighborhood, it seemed like Katie saw her everywhere, in school, on the street, even at the barbecues in Katie's own yard. But she never saw Mrs. Dirkman at Louie's. Mrs. Dirkman was not a big pizza eater. "All right, Katie, I'm going as fast as I can," said her mom. But when Katie and her mother arrived at Louie's pizza shop, there were plenty of seats left. In fact, there were only 3 people in the whole restaurant. A father and his 2 sons. "Slow day, Louie?" Mrs. Carew asked as she sat down at the table near the oven. Louie pounded hard on a pile of dough. "It's only slow here," he answered. "It's mob at Olives and Oregano." Mrs. Carew nodded understandingly. "It's a new restaurant. People will get tired of it." "I don't think so. Olives and Oregano is part of a big chain of restaurants. They have lots of money to spend on advertising. Look at this," Louis said as he pulled out a newspaper. Katie and her mother looked at the newspaper. There was a full-page ad. "They have clowns and magicians performing all day," Louie told Katie and her mom. "Big deal," said Katie. "Nobody puts on a better show than you, Louie, or has better pizza." Louie smiled at her. "Thanks, Katie. I wish there were more kids like you." "Don't worry, Louie," Mrs. Carew said. "Things will pick up. It's still early." And sure enough, someone else walked into the restaurant. "Katie!" Suzanne shouted. "Here you are!" She held out a wooden paddle with a red rubber ball attached to it. She was hitting the ball with the paddle. 38, 39, 40, she counted as she tapped the ball. "I told you I'd meet you here," Katie told her. Suzanne nodded. 41, 42, 43? "What are you doing?" Katie asked her. "I'm trying to break the world paddle record. 50, 51. "When did you start that?" Katie asked. "A few minutes ago," Suzanne replied, still counting. "They were giving out the paddles at Olives and Oregano." Bam! Louie pounded the dough so hard the counter shook. The noise broke Suzanne's concentration, and she missed the ball. "Drat," she said. "Now I'll have to start all over." Katie put her hand on the paddle. "Not now." "But I'm going to break the record." "You can do that later." She knew Louie didn't want to see an Olives and Oregano paddle bouncing up and down in his own restaurant. "Let's sit down and eat a slice. Mandy and Miriam should be here any minute. They always have lunch at Louie's on Sunday." "I don't think they're coming today. I just saw them eating hoagies at Olives and Oregano." Louie didn't say anything, but judging by the frown on his face, Katie could tell he'd heard everything Susanna just said. Olives and Oregano was taking over all the food business in the mall. This was not so good. And that's the end of chapter 4. I hope you enjoyed it, Abby. I love you so much. I hope you have sweet dreams. Love you, Johnny.